What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Mark Wahlberg. Welcome to Bonfire Talks, another episode for you with my man, Kalen. Hi, Kalen.
Hey, Mark. How you doing?
You're busy setting shit up. Caught you off guard. I'm good, man. How are you doing?
Good. I'm hot.
Hot.
I'm good, yes. It's very hot.
It's like 95 degrees here in Los Angeles, and while I'm sure there are parts of the country where you're like, oh, that's terrific, it just gets oppressive because we don't get any spring. It just goes straight from like gray and chilly to just blistering hot. But
on top of that, this studio that we're in is not a studio. It's a converted garage, so it's not insulated. So I've made it into a studio, I'm
TV's Mark Wahlberg. I'm supposed to be in this high-end studio, not somebody's garage.
I've made this garage pretty high-end, but needless to say, there's no insulation in here. So
I also love that people comment about, oh, man, you've got this guitar of yours and the video games and all that. None of it's mine. None of it. It's a chair, not mine. None of it. It's just a place I come to where Caitlin lets me do this and share it with you guys. So, yeah, the good news is it's hot for 4th of July. Because there have been many 4th of Julys out here where it's gray and a little bit chilly, and it's not as fun. 4th of July may be my favorite holiday. I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, it's up there. I mean, I'd say, Thanksgiving, 4th of July, it's tough.
See, I'm not a fan of Thanksgiving.
Oh, I love Thanksgiving.
I don't like the food particularly.
Oh, get out of here.
Yeah, I'm not a turkey guy and all this stuff. It's all beige and brown food. And I guess it's because for years we went to Pacadal Gary's house, my brother-in-law.
Yeah.
And he hates spicy. So everything is sort of bland. So I'm putting like hot sauce on everything. And I found myself sitting at Thanksgiving with a bunch of people I didn't know. So we've had some good Thanksgivings recently where we've kind of, we went to Virginia one year. Morgan got a bed Airbnb. That was really fun. Last year, we went to, my daughter-in-law's father is a member of a country club.
Oh.
And they have a Thanksgiving buffet situation that was the best buffet I've ever seen in my life. And I literally saw him for Father's Day. And I'm like, it may be early, but can we lock that in for Thanksgiving? Because I'm not going to be a member of any club. And that was like pain-free. We had a good time. But back to 4th of July. I've had so many memorable 4th of Julys. And although it's not really our anniversary of any kind, it kind of marks the beginning of my relationship with Robbie. Because we met May 10th. And we were sort of seeing each other, and that was fine. But by July, we were a thing. And it was at July 4th when I met her brothers for the first time and all that. So we used to live in Laurel Canyon, or she used to live in Laurel Canyon, which if you guys don't know, in L.A., it's in Hollywood, above Hollywood in the hills.
It's fancy.
And it's kind of famous. A lot of rock and rollers. Jim Morrison lived there, and Joni Mitchell lived there, and Crosby, Stills, and Nash were there and everything. And it's still that kind of vibe.
There's a movie called Laurel Canyon.
There's a movie called Laurel Canyon. Kate Beckinsale, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think Kate Beckinsale was in it. But there was this guy who was a friend of ours who's since passed away, but he bought this lot at the top of Laurel Canyon that used to have a house on it, but the house burned down or something, and he was going to build his house on it. But for years, it was just what he called the site where he was going to build his house. But the only thing that remained was this pool. And so for years, we all had keys to this pool, and that's where we spent 4th of July. And it was great, man. We would just hang out up there. And I remember Robbie and I were newly dating, and she was really uptight about me meeting her brothers. And I'm like, I don't know why you're so uptight about that. And then I met her brothers, and I see why that was. They immediately slammed me against the fence and started peppering me with questions like, do you know how to do a time step? Can you do a back handspring? How do you look in tights and all this stupid shit? And Robbie's crawling out of her skin. And not within 20 minutes of meeting them, I'm in the pool. My brother-in-law, Gary, Pacadal Gary, who is a career stuntman and acrobat, is climbing up on my shoulders and teaching me how to hold him so we could do a 3-high, right? And in doing so, because he's a little manic, he kicks me in the jaw. So literally the first time I met him, I'm sure he broke my jaw. I couldn't talk. I couldn't move my jaw for a week. And I should have known then this was a full contact family. So that was the first 4th of July we spent together. But the next year, we were a thing. We weren't engaged yet, but we were a thing. Mm-hmm. And Gary's a scammer, man. for sport. So we go to the site and we're all swimming all day, and then we would all jump in the cars and go to the Rose Bowl in Pasadena that has a fantastic fireworks show. And they used to have, like, while the sun's going down, they set up a whole circus. And they'd have this whole circus going on. Then the sun would set, fireworks, amazing, right? But hard to get a ticket. So, and just so you know, I'm like a meticulous rule follower. Like, I hate breaking any rules. I'm just uptight about it. Gary, quite the opposite. So this was the plan for 4th of July. None of us have tickets. And we caravan in 3 or 4 cars. He's got a big, like, Chevy van with the license plate that says Acrobat. And we're driving to Pasadena, traffic everywhere. And he goes to a police barricade, moves the barricade, waves us through. The police stop us immediately. Gary jumps out and says, "Hey, man, we don't have time for this." And the cop's like, "What are you talking about?" He says, "We're with the circus, and we're late, and we got to go." And he looked, first of all, he's dressed like a homeless Uncle Sam. And you got to, I wish I could just show you this guy, because he's 5'5", weighs like 20 pounds, ripped, because he's, an acrobat. But he looks, if anybody's going to be in a circus or a circus performer, it would be him. He's wearing bell-bottom red and white stripe and stars and stripes pants that were like some teenage girl's pants in the 60s that he wears, and this really tight, almost a crop top American flag thing, and it just like regaled out, right? He's got stars and stripes, Doc Martens on, the whole thing, right? So when he jumps out and says, "We're with the circus," the cop goes, "Oh, I guess he is." And then he says, "So are the 3 cars behind us," one of which has 2 80-year-old grandmas in it, but supposedly they're with the circus. So somehow, and I'm sweating bullets, like I don't want to go to jail. How much does it cost to buy a ticket? What does it take? So we get in the parking lot through the first, checkpoint, and the Gary's like, I'm like, "Do we have tickets?" He's like, "No, don't worry about it." I'm like, "Don't worry about it." So he goes to the media table, and he says, "We're with the circus. Our tickets should be here." And they're not, of course. And there are like 20 of us. And he talks and does his thing. Next thing we know, we get 20 tickets, general admission tickets. I'm crawling out of my fucking skin. I just don't even want to go in. We go in. Our seats are way at the top of the Rose Bowl. He's like, "Yeah, nah." There's a roped off area, the first 3 rows, marches right down, jumps over the rope. We all, 20 of us, sit down at the thing. Nobody says a word. Usher comes over to kick us out. Gary says, "No, you don't understand. We have to be here." And somehow it happens. So now I'm starting to relax. We're watching the circus, which, by the way, this circus that kind of is a bunch of acts and a guy kind of coordinates it for 4th of July. Mm-hmm. Gary knows them all, of course, right?
Yeah.
So he knows everybody. So we're sitting there, and there's an act going on across the field, okay? It's a web act, so that's that kind of rope that girls climb up, and there's a loop they put their hands in, and they spin around. They do all this acrobatics, right? And Gary says, one of the girls is Paula. Now, Paula was like Gary's mom when he moved out here in 1968. She's a former, like, old school acrobat. And now, at this point, she was 65 years old and doing what was going to be her last time performing, doing this web act. And we're watching the act, and we're like, wow, I can't believe she's doing so great, and it's awesome. And the act ends, and the girls climb down off the rope, but Paula doesn't. And it appears that she's stuck at the top 20 feet up in this rope, 30 feet up in this rope, and she's stuck. And she's older, and you can see she's getting tired. Meanwhile, another act starts, this big tight rope. He's going to walk to the top of the Rose Bowl and back down, and everybody's supposed to watch. But now everybody's watching. Holy shit, there's a woman stuck in the rope. And I'm like, this is terrible. Gary says, I got to help her. So Gary, again, dressed like a homeless Uncle Sam, like almost like hip huggers, like just bad. Jumps over the wall onto the field of the Rose Bowl. Mm-hmm. Security doesn't say anything. Sprints across the field. Now, if you think about it, man, they would have taken him down immediately.
Yeah.
He climbs up the rope like a monkey, like nothing I've ever seen. And you see him talking to Paula up there, and then he climbs back down the rope. Then I swear to God, takes a knife, like a big knife, puts it in his teeth like a pirate, climbs back up the rope, climbs over her to the top. What had happened was there are two different loops, one that you put your foot through, one that you put your hands through. And she put her foot through a hand one, and she couldn't get it out. Mm-hmm. And now she's exhausted. She's hanging half upside down. Meanwhile, this poor guy's walking a tightrope, and nobody gives a shit. Everybody's like watching this ordeal go on, and who's this crazy monkey man? And he literally climbs up the rope with the knife, saws for what seems like eternity to cut through this loop, frees the loop, kind of climbs back down under her, puts her on his shoulder while holding onto the rope, and climbs back down the rope with Paula on his shoulder and saves her life, right? The place goes absolutely fucking crazy. And all I'm thinking about is, how can I marry into this family? Like, the expectations are far greater than anything I'm ever going to be able to accomplish. There's no way I can do any of the things that her family does routinely, including breaking into places where we're not invited, which he does all the time. So that was the beginning of our relationship. I've been married in August will be 38 years, and it hasn't changed one bit. Every single event we do, there's some sort of scam that we have to get through to get there, and I'm crawling out of my skin. But I will say this, that was one of the most heroic moments I've ever seen.
I was going to say, that is a crazy story that I was not expecting. And not only that, but it actually like he scammed his way in there, talking about how he's a part of the show, and he ended up being a part of the show.
Yeah, thank God he scammed his way in. Right. The next year we go to do it, and he goes for the same scam, and he goes up to the cop and says, "We're with the circus." And the guy says, "There's no circus. It's a soccer game." Like, yeah, well, we're at halftime for the soccer game, and somehow he got us back in again. But, he was, I have to give props. There are things about Gary that I can't get my head around. But that was an amazing, amazing moment. And it was so seminal in my relationship with him. Is like, I took him from this weird guy and put him in this whole other esteem. And since then, he's done stunts. He's done other things. There's virtually nothing a guy doesn't know how to do. Here's another story of how great Gary is. I didn't plan to go on this tirade, but this is amazing. When we had the earthquake, he has this house, this old 1920s house at the very top of Laurel Canyon, the most beautiful view you've ever seen. And then the earthquake hit, and we were in the valley, and it was bad. And we check in with Gary. You okay? You okay? He says, yeah. I got some cracks in my walls, but everything's okay at my house. I'm like, great. Later on that day, I go to check on him. His house is going to fall down. It is absolutely decimated. It's standing, but there's like this much gap between like load-bearing walls of a 2-story building, just sheared off. And what are you going to do, right? What are you going to do? They're going to red tag it. It's going to be closed down. It's his dream house. What are you going to do? Well, Gary, because of Paula the acrobat was also this real estate, maven. She owns houses everywhere. And Paula and her partner, Russ, taught Gary how to build stuff. So Gary started becoming this guy where he bought these just dilapidated houses, built them without a permit, rented them, and made his fortune, right? So now his house is falling down. We don't know what to do. And here's what he does. It's the most amazing thing. He borrows an RV from a friend, parks it in his driveway, runs an extension cord from his house to the RV. His kids and his wife lived there for 6 months, homeschooling and all that stuff. We, like Amish people, go up there and demo out his whole house, pull down stone by stone from his fireplace that had crumbled, everything. We took car jacks and 2x4s and jacked up the second story of his house so it didn't collapse. And over the next 6 months, Gary, with his own hands, and guys he got at Home Depot, who probably aren't even in the country anymore, rebuilds his house from scratch. But in doing so, he takes lemons and turns it into lemonade. So he gets this crazy alcoholic guy who lost his contractor license because he drank too much. Yeah. And the guy starts getting excited by Gary, and they rebuild the house like a Disneyland castle with like turrets and a steeple and paint it pink and blue and like all this stuff. He builds the whole thing without a permit. By the time they come up to check it out, the guy says, just get us a permit for the deck and you're good to go. So he takes what would have been devastating for any of us and goes to Home Depot and buys lumber and just rebuilt his house from scratch all the way up. He has been an inspiration to me in so many ways about taking tragedy, spending no time on the tragedy, no self-pity, and getting right into action. Even with the recent passing of his beloved wife, who died unexpectedly not long ago, he mourned, and then he got on with his life, living his life.
Yeah.
And, his stance, and I think this is something for you guys to take, is that it takes energy to have fun. So when you're having an opportunity to go do something and you're on the couch and you don't want to leave the house, get up, go, start living. There's not a day he stays home. He goes out and he's at a party every night. And it's amazing. He's 70 years old and parties like a rock star. Don't even get me started about Burning Man, where his daughter told him, you got to wear clothes. You just, when I'm around, you can't walk around naked at Burning Man. So anyway, I don't know why I went on that, but 4th of July and that family, we've all spent so many 4th of Julys together. This year, we're going to hang out with Morgan. I used to have the 4th of July party at my house, but then I got a little shitty about it because I have this big pool. I have a great place to have a party, and I never want to have it, but they always want me to have it. But Gary and their whole family, we have a disagreement about the temperature of the pool. And that's a hill I'm willing to die on. He wants it at 92 degrees.
That's not okay.
Thank you. Thank you. I like a pool that when you jump in, it's too cold and you immediately get used to it and you're refreshed.
Especially if it's hot outside.
Which it always is.
Yeah.
But he won't go in, and then he'll talk shit about it. And I'm not going to, such an asshole. Like, why don't you just heat the pool? Just heat the pool. Make people happy. But I'm like, no, it's not supposed to be hot. It's supposed to be a little bit cool. It can't be the same temperature as outside. It's not refreshing. And we've had that fight every year until finally I said, I'm not having the party anymore. So I lose. And ultimately, standing on the ground, I end up losing. But we're going to go up to Morgan's house. He's in Oxnard. We'll hang out there. We'll do all the grilling and stuff. I will make my signature dish that I do all the time that I'll tell you about. And then we're going to go on his ship that he's working on, because he's a pirate now, this tall ship, and watch the fireworks from there, if there are fireworks. So my dish that I do every 4th of July and every occasion, everybody thinks is like amazing. But you know when you know those cast iron Dutch ovens?
Yeah.
Like for camping and stuff, kind of cowboy cookware. When you buy the Lodge Dutch oven, Lodge is the company, and feel free to sponsor Lodge because I'm a big fan. They give you a little cookbook, and the first thing in it is this thing called a lazy cobbler, which is so easy to do. But I do it every year, and people just think it's like I'm a miracle worker. And you throw yellow cake in and some butter and some peaches and cinnamon, and you put it over coals for like 45 minutes, and it's this delicious cobbler that I have made at every event since. Anytime I go somewhere, they're like, make the cobbler, make the cobbler. So I'll do that. It'll be basic American 4th of July. We'll hang and drink beer and go to the beach and do all that stuff. So I'm kind of psyched about that.
My go-to is deviled eggs.
See, I love deviled eggs. And that deviled eggs are the thing that, like, when you're at a party and you take what you're supposed to take and then you kind of don't want to take too much. I want to eat the whole plate of them.
Yeah.
Gary will take the 2 and eat them and take 4 more and put them on a plate and hide it, take home later. That's Gary's move.
That's like the Curb Your Enthusiasm caviar bit. You remember that one?
Vaguely.
It's someone at the parties taking too much caviar. And, of course, Larry David's like, come on, you can't do that. You got to limit the caveat, and then that's the whole bit. But that's essentially what I feel like every time I see deviled eggs. I think
the lesson for me when it comes to Gary and how he operates, because Gary and his daughter Bonnie and all of them, they're just different than I am. And literally, like, we're at a party, they're walking around with hors d'oeuvres and stuff, and Gary and Bonnie will tell the people, bring me out 20 of them, and then not eat them because they're not hungry, and save them to take home. And I get all uptight about that because you're not supposed to do that.
You're not supposed to.
But the lesson is, what fucking skin off my nose is it if they take extra hors d'oeuvres at a party I'm not throwing?
Yeah.
Like, if somebody's pissed, they can talk to them. And this goes to something we've talked about on the show before, jobs that you take on that don't pay you, that you think you're employed to do. And I spend a lot of my time there. And I have to constantly say to myself, what would happen if I just let everybody do whatever the fuck they're doing? Nothing. It happens at restaurants. I get pissed at Robbie because, I worked in a restaurant for many years. And even last night we went out to dinner for Thai food, which is, by the way, my new thing.
Thai food?
I never liked it, but now I found a dish I like, and I'm so down. So I'm having Thai food now. So,
Pad Thai is the only thing that I've ever gotten.
That's what I'm having. That's it. I've had it 3 times this week. But like when Robbie orders, she doesn't order what's on the menu. She orders like, what ingredients do you have in the kitchen to create this thing I want? And I'm like, just cook it at home. Don't you understand that when the waiter comes over to say, can I take your order? And you go, how's the Pad Thai? And gosh, I can't decide between this. I'm like, to me, my clock is going, I got 5 tables. There's a timing to this, and you're taking my time talking about stuff that's all written right there if you just read the menu. And I get all worried about the feelings of the waiter so much that it ruins my time, and I'm the asshole. And can I tell you something, folks? It's not, and I'm the asshole. I am truly the asshole. That's called asshole behavior. It's like, why do you feel the need to control everything? And it is a burden that I can't seem to shake. So I'm really working on that. Like Mel Robbins, let them. That's her whole thing. Let them. There's so much power in that. What happens if you let the train go off the tracks? Nothing happens. 9 times out of 10, nothing happens. And if it does happen, you didn't do it. Why do you feel the need to protect everyone's feelings who no one asked you to do? And it is an incredible amount of energy that at my age, I should have fixed this. But I'm a work in progress. And that's why I use this podcast just to vent to you guys, as I can hear you clicking to listen to another one talking about some reality show. But this is therapeutic for me. I need to talk about this for me. And if it helps you, that's great. But in the meantime, I'm struggling. I'm struggling on everything. Like marriage. Let's just go there for a second. I really didn't want to go here, but I'm just going there.
Let's go there.
Marriage, Kaylin, is sometimes very hard.
I've heard.
It's not a big epiphany, but I'm letting you know that sometimes marriage is hard for me. And it's not that I don't love my wife. You guys know that I do. I love her madly. But we are so different. And when I'm not feeling good about myself, I find myself taking it out on others. My patience, my tolerance for things like the restaurant goes out the window. And I just turn into this really mean control freak. And then what's worse is when you have behavior like that with someone you love, right? You feel terrible. And the simple anecdote for that, as I've coached people on television and in life, I have been the guy with the advice that I don't take, which is ask for forgiveness, say you're sorry, and act differently. Like admit that you're being an asshole and then act differently. And I find myself knowing I'm being a jerk, getting called on it, and then defending my position, which is called gaslighting. That's what it is. And so I've been in that funk. I have a lot of free time right now, which sounds really great, but it doesn't work for my psyche. I need to have a reason to get up and go to work and do something. And it's a beautiful thing that I work in a career that I work like a month, a year, if I'm lucky.
Well, we've talked about the importance of needing to stay busy.
Yeah, it's really, really healthy to do so. And what I find is when you don't stay busy, it's easier to not stay busy. That's where depression grows if you're not careful. And so I'm found myself with the kind of summertime, everything's quiet, and instead of just enjoying stuff, I start getting tight, and then I take it out. And this goes back to what we've talked about before. Robbie says, TV's Mark Wahlberg. I love that guy. This guy in the house, fucking get your shit together. And I've been that guy lately. So I guess this is my way. If Robbie were to listen to this is my way of saying, in a very not intimate way, I'm very sorry for my behavior lately. I will do better because you matter to me and I love you. Wow. Now, if I could take that and give that to you as advice of how to handle a relationship and then do that, everything would be easier. Pride and ego get in the way of that. But I'm going to work on that. Because at the end of the day, what do you really want? Do you want to be right and walk around going, I told her? Or do you want to just be happy with the person you love? And it may not be for you, but for me, I have to remind myself of that because I guess fear, frustration, things like that show up for me where I take it out on the people closest to me, not anybody else. I'll be beautiful to strangers, but really, really shitty to the people closest to me. And there's fallout for that. And then I have to constantly be making an amends for behavior that I thought was justified, and then having to go, wow, not so justified. I'm sorry. And I won't do it again until next week when I do it again and have to apologize again. So, I'm working on that. I guess the reason this is all coming up, Kaylin, is something I haven't talked about at all. And I know as soon as I say it, I now have to do it.
Yeah.
I've been writing a book.
Oh, wow.
Not wow.
No, not wow.
Torture. And I'm writing a book because people said, you should write a book. Every time I sit with people and tell stories and stuff, they go, oh man, this would be so interesting in a book. You should write a book. I get the question a lot of, where do you get the advice you give on the show? Where's that come from? And it comes from life lessons. My life has gone the way it has. And at each chapter of my life, there has been a takeaway, a powerful, often takeaway, sometimes through horrible pain, that has made me a better person. So I've sat down to try to write this book. Now, what I said to myself is, you're going to write with no judgment, and later we'll edit and figure out if this is readable or anything, but stop thinking about that. Just write. And I did good for quite some time, but I'm a little stuck now. I have like 50,000 words I've written already. Pretty good.
Sounds pretty good.
But then I'll take a moment and go back and read a couple chapters. I'm like, you're just talking about, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. But I have to kind of forgive myself and give myself the grace to just go through the process. The reason I bring it up is, as I keep writing about my life and every turn in my marriage and in my career and in my parenting and all this stuff that I'm writing in this book, just fucking brings me right back to these times in my life that I have worked to just not think about. And I'm finding all these pockets of areas of my life that are unresolved, that still haunt me in ways like I just talked about. That defensiveness that shows up, that isolation that shows up, those things like that. And there are literal, now I was going to say chapters of my life that are actually chapters now in my life, where you can see where that started, like what the thing was that caused that behavior. And I'm looking at how complacent I've been in going back, and I'm careful with my language. You don't fix it. You don't go back and fix things. But I prefer to say, go back and complete on this. I don't think the ghosts go away forever. I've said this before here. But you get to the place where you can live with them, and you are the parent to your child, right? And you can do that stuff. But it's been up in front of my eyes because I've been writing every day, and I'm writing about these twists and turns in my life and career where I'm like, fuck, man, what was I thinking? Oh, what would my life be like had I made a different choice then, right? And so many times, and so many painful times. Like I just wrote a chapter about, I wrote a chapter about, I had a talk show, big deal, like a big deal. Not big deal, but it was a big deal for me.
It's a pretty big deal to get a talk show.
Yeah, but it had me move to New York with a 3-year-old son, and my wife was 8 months pregnant. So a lot was going on. And then I did this season, and then it got canceled. There's a lot in there that I share about I don't need to go into now. And then we moved back to L.A., and I can't work because now I'm too famous to do all the stuff I used to do, not famous enough to do big stuff, and there's a cooling off period. After you've had a show that's canceled, nobody wants to touch you. And now I'm just like, what am I going to do? And I end up going like really in trouble, like bankruptcy in trouble. And as I'm trying to do whatever I can to feed my family, I end up going back to being a warm-up guy that I had done before I became a TV host. And I'm showing up, entertaining the studio audience for some other show. And I can hear people in the audience going, wasn't that guy like a big deal last year? Like, why is he doing this? Like all of that stuff is, and I just kept going, there's no shame in feeding your family. There's no shame in feeding your family. And I remember in that period of time thinking, there's no way I'm going to climb this mountain. This is it. I'm going to be broke and forgotten about for the rest of my life. And because, thank God, I had Robbie and the kids that I had a responsibility to, if I couldn't do it for me, I did it for them, you know? Yeah. And so I showed up. I just showed up and did whatever I could do. Just showed up and showed up and showed up. And then opportunities started to show up, and now it's just a distant memory. And I think there's a lot of lessons I learned from that, is that, phrases I always give Robbie a hard time about that are like cliches, like this too shall pass, is so true, though. It's so true that you just got to keep swimming. You just got to keep moving forward. You don't need a plan. You just need action. You just need to find those things that bring you joy so that you can continue to live a messy life. And in light of that, recently, I've been talking a lot about Morgan taking on this job on this ship, which is sort of like, it's not a career, it's a job. And
well,
it's silly.
Before you get to that, because that's a whole nother topic of conversation, just in terms of like writing the book. Like,
yes.
Of course, there's going to be a lot of drafts. Do you have anybody like helping you, or
Not
is that
yet.
for later?
So the goal, the way I've decided to crunch this is I did some research of how long a book should be. I think it needs to be about 70,000 words or so before it is substantial enough. And I'm really very, very close. I write, 3,500, 4,000 words every time I sit down to do it. So I'm maybe 4 or 5 writing sessions away from getting to a point where it's enough of a volume. But I'm going to tell the whole story, and I'm not nearly. I'm like 2001 life. I haven't even gotten here. So my plan is to just keep driving the bus down that road, keep writing whatever comes to my mind, then take that piece to somebody who's going to read it and go, yeah, this, you lose me here, this is good. And then we'll start editing.
I like writing, and I've done some writing, but all my writing is like, it's script, and it's TV and movies, that sort of thing. And I saw online the other day a really good piece of advice that applies to movies and TV, but it's storytelling. I don't know if it's going to apply to an autobiography or book reading or whatever, but it's still a really good piece of advice for keeping an audience attention, is that it was from Trey Parker and Matt Stone. Great writers. And they go, when we read a script, and because you said this a couple minutes ago, when we read a script and it says this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, we throw it out.
Great.
What you want to write is this happened, therefore this happened. But this happens. That's how you should structure, again, a script. But it sounds like kind of what you're saying. I got a TV show, therefore I thought this way. But it got canceled.
Right. I mean, I think my goal was to tell the stories of my life, whether I think they're important or not, and then tell what I learned from that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, one of the first things I write about is the day that, did I tell you about my neighbor telling me I wasn't white?
No.
Okay. So that's one of the first chapters in this book. I was raised in the deep South, like South Carolina, and pretty rural area. And there were like 6 houses on my street. My best friends lived down the street. And we were not like any other family. My mother was born in New York and raised in Miami. They were theater people. My dad, they had some, kind of cosmopolitan vibe, where this was country folk. And we're playing in the yard. We're actually riding our bikes as fast as we can and then turning into my friend Len's driveway and slamming on the brakes to see how long of a skid mark we could make, which was very important to us. And then you immediately had to get off your bike. This is so boomer, but you get off your bike and immediately get on your hands and knees and start blowing the skid mark, because you could blow it away. If you don't do it immediately, it stays on the driveway, and then you're in big trouble.
Yeah.
So we're doing this, and Len's mom is out on the driveway kind of talking to her next-door neighbor, who was her twin sister. And they were absolutely the cliche of 1970s Southern woman. Their hair was always done up and hairsprayed. They were always wearing a polyester pantsuit, even when they're on the rider mower, cutting their own grass. They always had a full face of makeup on, the whole thing. And I remember her saying something to me about, they were complaining about some black people, but they didn't use that terminology. Mm-hmm. And she literally turned to me at some point in the conversation. She said, y'all ain't N-words, but y'all ain't white.
Yeah.
And I was like, first of all, what brought that on, and why do you have to tell me that? And what it did for me was it let me know right away what I was feeling all along, that I was using the terminology that's been developed by this generation, I have been othered. And I felt that. And it's so stupid. I'm Jewish. It wasn't that much of a burden. It's not like when you're black in the South, racism is a real thing. Oh, you're denied opportunity. When you're Jewish in the South, you hear disparaging stuff, but there's nothing I'm really denied except joining the country club, Yeah. And so I don't at any point claim that I was oppressed like black and brown people were, but it has given me an insight into those marginalized cultures.
Just like a little taste almost.
So, and it informed me when I started becoming a warm-up guy and a host, I found that regardless of the demo of the audience, I knew what to say to them. I could relate because I felt more a part of that crowd. The place where I never had anything but love was in the black community. They treated me just with love all the time. And I always felt in those early years that I was everybody's Jewish friend, not necessarily everybody's friend. And so I write about that moment had me develop so many of the skills that I've since learned how to empower, which is my fear of that judgment and the repercussion of being not white had me really walk into every situation keenly aware of everybody and trying to suss out who's dangerous, who's safe, so that I could come up with the right things to say to make everybody okay, including the waiter in the restaurant this week. Right. So anyway, the process has been stuff like that, these chapters in my life, and the takeaway from that chapter that is with me today has made me who you guys see on TV, and whenever I say something that you dig, this is where it came from. Not from a book. This came from oftentimes painful moments in my life. We all have them where we make decisions about how we're going to go forward. And either we continue living out of those decisions or we take the time to look at who we're being in those decisions we've made about ourselves and start to crumble up the rocks of what about that story is true and empowering, and what about that story is a story you've been living in that's not true at all and has held you back. And that's been my life's journey, really, has been what are the things about me that I say are true that aren't true and hold me back? And what are the things about me that I deny that are true about me that make me great in hopes of becoming greater?
Yeah.
Right? So writing this attempt at writing the book, which I've done many times over the years and just put it away, has me so stirred up. And I don't think Robbie's going to live through it. And I can't read it to anybody. I can't do anything like that. So, by the way, if you have any interest in reading a book I wrote, let us know in the comments, and then I won't quit. And I'll try to finish it for you. So I can't seem to do it for me. But, so that's what I'm doing right now. And I think that's important because when you're sitting there going, I don't have anything on my calendar today, I'm just waiting to go back to work, it's best to continue to work. Mark DiCarlo, who I've had here many times, he doesn't stop. He works no matter what. He's doing stuff. And it's really healthy. Anyway, that's that. Book is coming. It's
excited.
Coming. I mean, 50,000 words is,
pretty
I could almost kind of stop here, but I got to finish the story. And I will. And I will cry while I do it, but that's okay too. Let's see.
You were getting into Morgan.
Yeah, I was just saying about when you take off the agenda expectation or desperate need for money or things like that and focus on doing things that light you up. You know the feeling when you're lit up?
Oh, yeah.
When you do those things, there are opportunities that happen way off the page that you could never predict, and that's how you access incredible... I'm saying this, which I've said a million times, like I know it, but I need to remind myself. Whenever it comes out of my mouth, I realize I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to myself. But just showing up and being joyful, even a little bit, having your light shine a little bit, creates opportunities you could never, ever predict. Morgan went on a cruise. He fucking loved it. I want to work on the water. Walked down to the harbor, applied for a job, got hired on this tall ship, and now he's going out every day with these field trips of kids and teaching them about sailing and doing all this stuff. But if you were to look at that situation and think, here's what are the possible outcomes for him, you'd be limiting what's going to happen. It's already, he's now doing their social media. So he's creatively and artistically editing this stuff, and it's leaps and bounds above what has happened in the past. There are people that are coming on the ship that are so engaged in Morgan because he's having such a good time that they want to know more. They want to give him more responsibility. I guarantee you, in 6 months, if he stays with this, he'll be in some other career.
Yeah.
Because when you're lit up, it's hard to deny. And right now he's lit up, and it's really fun to watch. It's fun to watch somebody else kind of going, I fucking dig it. I'm having a great time. I don't care that I'm making no money. I don't care that I was once a Navy pilot, at the top of the game, and now I'm like a hourly wage crewman on some, replica of a ship. I don't care about any of that. It lights me up. It gives me purpose every day. I'm excited to get up and go do it. I get to be out on the water. I love that. And I think this is a reminder to me, and hopefully a charge for you guys, is that if you're stuck, you don't have to overthink it. Just whatever gets you unstuck for 5 minutes. If it just gets you unstuck enough to go, I remember what it feels like to be happy. I remember what it feels like to be excited about something. And just do that, and don't worry about the plan, because other shit shows up. It always does. And I'm just trying to remind myself that right now, because I've been taking care of Robbie. We haven't been leaving the house. I'm home a lot. Nothing's going on. It's very quiet. And I start to get in my head about stuff. But I have to remember, that's the rhythm of life. There's ups and downs. I'm about to get really hectic. I should enjoy, and I'm trying to enjoy this time, because it's about to get hectic, which is a way for me to invite you to come see me. How's that for a segue?
Nice.
So I'm doing Wheel of Fortune live, stage version of your favorite TV show, America's show. What did I say? America's Game, Wheel of Fortune. So we're doing it as a live event. Audience members buy a ticket. They come in. The whole set is there. The wheel's there. The board's there. And we play games with people in the audience, select people out of the audience to come up and actually play Wheel of Fortune, just like on TV, but it's not televised, and we give away prizes, and I get to host it. So we're really excited about that. It'll be at the Paris Hotel. I'm going to be there the weekend, Friday and Saturday, I think July 10th and 11th, and then again on the 17th and 18th, or 18th and 19th, I think, the next weekend. So check that out. You can go to wheeloffortunelive.com and get more information. I'll also be going out on the road in October to do a tour of this, but I'll tell you more about that when we get to it. So anyway, I just wanted to give a quick plug to that. If you're in Vegas on those weekends, please come. I'll be doing meet and greets. I'll be hanging out, and I'd love to say hello, so come do that and play Wheel of Fortune with me, and that'll be fun.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah? I mean, there's more I was going to talk about, but I rambled so much about my angst-ridden writing and being an asshole husband that I think I've taken up all the time I need to take up. So, look, this is a little rambly today. Obviously, maybe you can relate to it. When you're just in your head and you're not seeing things too clearly, even though I've got this role on TV where people think I'm seeing things clearly, that I've got this sage advice somewhere, I don't always have it. Sometimes I'm more the patient than the doctor. And I'm sharing it with you because maybe there's something I say that lands for you and you're going through something similar and you're kind of thinking you're the only one. Well, you're not. And we can all climb the mountain together. And I guess that's the whole purpose of the podcast. I guess if I had to boil it down, that's basically why I want to share anything with you about my life is in hopes of that. All right, Kaylin, anything you want to add? Anything you want to plug?
If you want to write into the show and get some advice from Mark, then you can email us at bonfiretalkspodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok for videos. And I think that's it. Have a good 4th of July.
Yeah, happy 4th of July, everybody. Keep the politics out of it. Celebrate what it feels like to be with family and sunshine and barbecue. And although it's not called a barbecue, it's a cookout. Barbecue is what you eat at a cookout. Mm-hmm. Okay? That's just a Southern thing. All right, that's it. That's all I got. Thanks for bearing with me. I love you guys. Thank you. And talk to you soon.